Okay, good evening, everyone. We're here to make good on a promise that the NYPD will always keep. If you think you could attack a member of this department, if you think you could threaten the lives of the very people who keep us safe, if you think you could put others at deadly risk and get away with it, then think again. We will never stop pursuing you. We will find you and we will arrest you. And then we will do everything in our power to bring you to justice. The shooting incident last night in Times Square was way beyond reckless. In the middle of the busiest, most highly trafficked part of this city, a criminal with a firearm decided to pull the trigger. He shot at a store security guard who had stopped him for shoplifting, striking and injuring an innocent bystander. He shot at the NYPD officers who pursued him through the streets of Midtown without a single thought of who he might hit or who he might kill. But just like we promised, less than 24 hours later, he's locked up and off our streets. Considering where these shootings took place, it's an actual miracle that we're not having a very different conversation right now. But no matter what, the men and women of the NYPD will never accept violence. We will never abide lawlessness, and we will never tolerate attacks on our cops. The shooter in this incident is no longer a threat. And as always, our cops will continue running toward the danger and putting themselves in between the threat and the threatened. That's our job, and nobody does it better than the NYPD. I'd like to thank our partners at the Regional Fugitive Task Force, the Yonkers Police Department, the Times Square Alliance for their support, the media for getting the word out about this investigation, and everyone who worked around the clock to bring this violent criminal in. Together, we are doing the vital work in keeping our city safe. Again, that's the promise the NYPD makes every day to every New Yorker, and that's a promise we will always keep. I will now turn it over to Chief Jason Savino from our Detective Bureau, who will share more details about this investigation. Chief.
And thank you, Commissioner. So once again, Assistant Chief Jason Savino, and I'm going to provide a brief recap of the initial incident, and that'll be followed by an investigative update. But before we even go further, I just want to reiterate some of the comments the boss made and just mention how proud we are with all involved. Again, in less than 24 hours, our teams removed a very, very violent subject that had zero reservations about firing shots and endangering our great public. So just a quick recap, last night at approximately 7 p.m. on the busy streets surrounding Times Square, inside a 1466 Broadway JD Sports Store, a loss prevention officer attempts to stop 3 subjects believed to be shoplifting a jacket. Now that officer observes this, properly does her job, and engages the shoplifters, requests a receipt. When no receipt could be produced, that loss prevention officer takes possession of the merchandise. As the 3 subjects begin to turn, as if to exit the store, suddenly and without prompting, one of the subjects displays a firearm and discharges it right in the direction of the loss prevention officer. Now that bullet missed her, but ultimately, and so unfortunately, it strikes an unintended victim. Our shooting victim, a female, 38, a tourist from Brazil, simply waiting online to purchase a pair of sneakers. She ran and hid in the back of the store, realizing she was shot in her left knee. She was treated at Bellevue, where she ultimately was released for a non-threatening, life-threatening injury. The 3 subjects flee and encounter uniformed police officers on foot posts assigned to Times Square in close proximity. Officers gave chase and apprehend a non-shooter without incident. Now that officer's partner continues to pursue the shooter, and as the shooter turns and apparently fires at our uniformed officer, not once, but on 2 different occasions, the second time while running, shooting across his body behind himself, something so potentially dangerous. Our uniformed officer was not struck, so fortunately, and did not return fire. Why? Because that officer was well aware of the danger that firing that gun in a crowded, busy street could potentially inflict. Now just take a moment to just take all of this in and consider that scene. 7 p.m., Times Square area, 42nd Street subway entrance, hundreds of our city's members enjoying the evening, really good buzz around the city. Our shooter, no regard for uniformed police or anyone in the area. It's really as reckless as we've seen. Now, investigatively, the team led by Levon Holly, Chief Levon Holly, and our Midtown South squads and our homicide squads used an entire task force of detectives and initiated all of our investigative techniques, namely video collection, canvases, forensics, evidence processing, ballistic recovery and comparisons, witness interviews. We literally spoke to hundreds of individuals. We obtained what we can be described as pristine photos of our subjects. Now, those photos ultimately lead to the identification of our shooter, Jesus Alejandro Rivas Figueroa, a 15-year-old male, born April 19th of 2008. Now, once we obtain this information, the investigation leads us out to Yonkers, 106 Saratoga Avenue, where Jesus was successfully apprehended without any incident at all. Now, I'd like to thank just so sincerely all of our entire Detective Bureau team for removing such a dangerous subject off our streets where he can no longer harm our public. Thank you.
Can I take any questions about this case?
John Doe? I'm sorry, Commissioner, does the NYPD keep stats on people who are recent migrant or recent arrivals that are involved in crimes in New York City, as in this case, he was a recent arrival?
Thank you for that question, John. But I can tell you is that we track crime throughout the whole city. And once again, I want to thank the men and women of the NYPD for the hard work they do every single day.
Stefan Kim?
What's his connection to Yonkers?
Stefan,
What's his connection to Yonkers?
Dr. Savino? Chief Savino?
Yeah, I mean, right now, we're looking at a potential family connectivity, but we made this apprehension, it's 2 hours old. We're going to get all the information at least this way, at least everything that we perceive is accurate and complete.
Oren Levy?
I'm Oren Levy from Viral News NYC. What's the severity of these gangs, and are they connected to any murders here or in other states?
Chief Savino?
Yeah, I mean, you know, when you talk gangs, we monitor every gang in the city. You know, every gang in the city is going to be monitored. Right now, we're not seeing connectivity with homicides and the like, but obviously we treat all gangs the same. We treat them accordingly, and if they break the law, we'll be sure to attack them.
All right, everyone. That's all we have time for right now. Thank you, everyone, for your time and attention.